I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and we're going to be spending a bit of time with the sacred places of the Northern Plains Indians today. First, let's let Mother Earth speak through her plains and prairies. Listen to the winds gently blowing, and in it hear the sounds of my Plains Indians of long ago, the soft singing around the teepees, the happy laughter of my children, the drumming of buffalo hooves when the hunt is on, the harsh shouts of warriors going into battle. Actually, they're going into hunting buffalo at this point. The expressions of gratitude being raised to the Great Spirit, and I've signified that by the use of the peace pipe. The Great Plains span hundreds of miles east to west, and from present-day Texas far up into present-day Canada, and you are looking at some prairie that has never known the plow. It's in Nebraska. And once these Great Plains lay unplowed, like this land also, this was home to many people: Sioux, Cheyenne, Shoshone, Arapaho, Crow, Blackfeet, Cree, Akara, and many other tribes of American Indians. Many places that you can still see were then and are still sacred to these people. That's a prairie dog. And here is a group of antelope. Here too was home to many creatures: prairie dogs, birds, antelope, and buffalo. And that is a single antelope. That is the fastest land animal in North America. He can do 50 miles an hour. And a beautiful meadowlark. The Great Plains to the east were lush and tall, the sea of grass. Moving westward, the water became scarce, and the grass became much shorter. In the high plains, water became a sometimes thing, like you're seeing in this picture. Now, we're going to be out in this area. This area is the Badlands. We're going to spend time out in through here. The Black Hills are here. We're going out to the Medicine Wheel up in here. We're coming to Devil's Tower right about there, and we're coming to Bear Butte right about there. Those are the places. The rolling grasslands of the Great Plains stretching to the horizon has now reached the edge of something very different. Your eyes now see erosion on a grand scale, formations called badlands. Millions of years ago, this area was covered by a large inland sea. That changed to marshy plains, and then what we know today as the Great Plains, and in this place, Badlands. Badlands is in a national park. And here is what I call the White Towers. Now you can see the layers laid down by that sea. Various forces have been at work here: water, wind, wind-driven sand, temperature changes. On the grassy places, pronghorns or antelopes make their home. Buffalo are back, not in great number, also in the grassy parts of this strange country. Prairie dogs, rabbits, coyotes, mule deer, bighorn sheep, many other animals find places that meet their needs here. Take with you a feel for this harsh land. I'm using titles in between because I want to impress these titles on your mind. The Black Hills, Papasepa, lie west of the South Dakota Badlands. This area is a magnificent wonderland of mountains, trees, rocks, small lakes, some waterfalls, caves, animals, and many kinds of vegetation. And let me catch you up on it. This is Sylvan Lake in the Black Hills. And I don't even know the name of this waterfall. And in one of those caves, Wind Cave, is this formation. Not stalactites and stalagmites, but a boxwork type formation. The ponderosa pine from a distance shows itself as a dark hue, and thus the name of Black Hills. But these are really mountains with one peak higher than any in the entire Appalachian Mountains. This is called the Needle here. That's the Needle's Eye. And here's a beautiful bighorn ram that I photographed in these mountains. Even bones of Ice Age animals like the woolly mammoth can be found here in the site of a sinkhole about 26,000 years old. Ice Age bones now, these are not petrified, these are Ice Age, and buffalo in the valley. The highest point in the Black Hills is Harney Peak. It's 7,242 feet above sea level, and we're going up to it, and you use a trail to get to the top. It's in the Black Elk Wilderness area. Black elk, yes, that is snow on the ground. Black elk was a holy man of the Logla Sioux, and it was on this sacred place, Harney Peak, that he experienced his visions. And this is a mountain goat on that mountain. This is a prayer by Black Elk. I'll do this while you're looking at 5 views of the top. Our grandfather, Wankatanka, you are everything, and yet above everything. You are first. You have always been. You are the truth. Our father, Wankatanka, has made his will known to us here on earth, and we must always do that which he wishes if we would walk the sacred path. You are the source of everything. You are the one who watches over and sustains life. Black Elk lived from 1863 to 1960. Now we're going to the north. We're going over into Wyoming, and this is at the northwest corner out in the countryside from the Black Hills. Bear Lodge, and we know it as Devil's Tower. This is the first national monument, as proclaimed by Theodore Roosevelt in 1906. And how did this wonderful formation come into being? Now, I'm not going to give you the geology of it. I'm going to give you a story that comes from the Kiowa Indians. These were one of the Plains Indians. And look at that fluting on that. And here is the story. 8 children were there at play, 7 sisters and their brother. Suddenly the boy was struck dumb. He trembled and began to run upon his hands and feet. His fingers became claws, and his body was covered with fur. Directly there was a bear where the boy had been. The sisters were terrified. They ran, and the bear after them. They came to the stump of a great tree, and the tree spoke to them. It bade them climb upon it, and as they did so, it began to rise in the air. The bear came to kill them, but they were just beyond its reach. It reared against the tree and scored the bark all around with its claws. The 7 sisters were born into the sky, and they became the stars of the Big Dipper. How do you like that for a story? My note, climbing this sacred place should be stopped. You don't climb church steeples for sport. And here is a hawk around the top. It probably is a falcon. Many species of birds, including hawks, eagles, both golden and bald, prairie falcons, have been seen here. Deer and prairie dogs are the most common mammals. There's a 1.25 mile trail around the base, and you will see prayer offerings on shrubs as you pass by. This is a sacred place. Then we're going further on out into Wyoming, out to the Bighorn Mountains. On top of the Bighorn Mountains, all is green. Grasses, shrubs, trees, cattle and open stock range and deer are seen as you make your way across. You're at 8 to 9,000 feet elevation and the air is crisp. If it's autumn, the aspen may have turned to gold. If it's spring or early summer, expect beautiful wildflowers. And then out on the Bighorn Mountains in the northern part, almost into Montana, is this medicine wheel. Now the medicine wheel is located at 9,642 feet above sea level in the northern part of the Bighorn Mountains in central Wyoming. Whether it goes back to 1700 AD or 1200 AD, it reflects thousands of years of Indian culture. Why a circle? The circle is at the heart of many Indian cultures. No beginnings, no end. Everything is connected to everything else. All people and nature and the maker. And you now have to hike 1.5 miles, and I'm showing you some of the vistas as you go, to get up on Medicine Mountain to see this medicine wheel. The 80-foot diameter wheel, well, I'll have you there in just a moment. This is a trail that you're going to continue on up there, and the medicine wheel is right up on there. And you no longer drive to it. When you get there, because of the rock and the general terrain, it would be hard to do, but take off your shoes, for the ground on which you stand is holy, comes to mind. Now this is an old picture when my wife and I first got there and saw this, and you see a little bit of fencing there, but no fencing is there any longer. They have put posts around it. This is also from then. They have put posts around it and rope, and in the center is a cairn, and from it radiate 28 spokes out to the circle. All of this is made of stone. 6 smaller cairns are also part of the wheel structure, and you can see the post in that picture. Now, picture yourself above timberline on windswept Medicine Mountain, gazing in wonder at this sacred place. Think of the thousands that have come here to worship, to find themselves and their way, to reestablish ties to the Great Spirit, by whatever name you use. Then you think of others, and you remember the prayer items you have brought today. You will tie your strips of prayer cloth, your little pouches of tobacco, your dream catchers to the rope surrounding this most holy ground. You will offer your prayers to the Great Spirit, and then you will silently depart. And we're going over now to the last of these, and that is to Bear Butte. This mountain in South Dakota, yes, we're back over in South Dakota, is considered the most sacred mountain of the Great Plains. The Creator has chosen to use this site to communicate with them through vision and prayer. Red Cloud, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Black Elk was a nephew of Crazy Horse, and many other leaders have all been here to worship. This has been a place of worship and prayer for over 2,000 years. It is a sacred site for 7 of the indigenous tribes of the Western Great Plains, and I just hope I have them right. The Lakota or Sioux, Cheyenne, Shoshone, Arapaho, Crow, Blackfeet, and Cree. And a view out from the butte will show you off in the distance, way off in the distance, the Black Hills. The earliest tribes having close ties to the mountain were the Mandan and their relatives, the Arikara, still come here. The mountain is a site for many vision quests. Now we'll come back to Bear Butte later and walk the trail to the top. This is over by the campground that we have used when we have been there. My youngest son and I camped there. And the hours are the sacred places. And you remember the Badlands, Harney Peak in the Black Hills, Devil's Tower, or Devil's Tower, and the Medicine Wheel, and the Bear Butte. I hesitated here, and I meant Bear Lodge. And though separated from Bible, Old and New traditions by thousands of miles and ages of time, the Plains Indians were not lacking in spiritual awareness. And now listen to the story of the creation according to Cheyenne tradition. And I have you in the top of the bighorns at this point, and then earth from space. And this is the Cheyenne tradition of the story of creation. In the beginning there was only Mahale, the power. He looked around him and saw nothing, listened and felt nothing, heard nothing, and there was nothing to feel. And so Mahale decided to form a universe. And doing this, he came to the moment when he held a ball of mud in the palm of his hand, and he created earth. He decorated it with mountains, oceans, clouds, rivers, forests, lakes, and meadows, reeds, vines, and grasses. He lit it with sun and moon, filled its air with birds, moon and stars, and filled its air with birds. This is a golden eagle. Its waters with fishes, and I have a whale for you, and its forests with animals. And Mahale looked at what he had made and saw that earth was full of beauty. He stared at earth and fell in love with it. And so he created man and woman from his own body. It would be their duty, he told them, to care for earth forever. And finally, when Mahale was finished with creation, when the world was made, when his mind had created people and the animals and birds and fish, then Mahale looked at what he had done and thought about his power. I will make one more being, he decided, something that could take the place of all the rest. And so Mahale, the power, created buffalo. Remember, Plains Indians, buffalo. These buffalo provided food, clothing. That's the end of the creation story according to the Cheyennes. These buffalo provided food, clothing, and many other things. But the Indians had to kill some of the buffalo. And one of the ways of killing the buffalo was a pishkoon, or buffalo jump. A camp was set up down below, and this is one of those jumps. This is by Great Falls, Montana. The buffalo were made to stampede, and warriors killed any that did not die from the fall. Women then stripped the hides and meat, drying and curing anything, and anything that was needed was done to use the entire animal. And here are some of the teepees that might have been down below, and here's the handling of the different buffalo parts. Wild buffalo probably numbered 70 million from Alaska and Canada down to northern Mexico. Now 200,000 on parks, refuges, and private property. And a particular buffalo figures very strongly in the tradition of the Plains Indians. The white female buffalo. The white buffalo woman came to the Lakota people. She came as a white buffalo and turned into a beautiful young Indian girl. She brought with her a sacred bundle, a sacred peace pipe. She taught them how to use it. She taught them several sacred ceremonies. She promised to return again. When she left, she rolled over 4 times, turning into a black buffalo, then brown, then red, and finally white. A white buffalo is the most sacred living thing you could ever encounter. That is a quote from one of the Plains Indian chiefs. And then changes began, and Mother Earth now speaks. And this is a painting called Conquest of the Prairies. Listen to the groans and creaks of the covered wagons as the westward movement begins and then quickens. A farm here and there doesn't disturb me, for my reaches are vast. But the numbers keep building, and each time that you hear the scraping of the plow, in that place, my grasses are gone forever. And then hear another sound, spikes being pounded into wood, followed by the lonesome sound of an iron horse trudging across my beautiful waving grasses, spreading both noise and smoke. Listen once more, for there is that scraping sound again, and this time it's multiplied by thousands. And that, in the end, is what destroys my sea of grass, that plow turning over my lovely, vibrant sod. The Treaty of 1868 promised the Black Hills to the Sioux Nation with no white man to enter this sacred ground. George Custer took an expedition into the hills in 1874 and confirmed that gold was there. And here's from the Homestake Mine, one of the cores where they have drilled ahead to see how much gold there will be in the ore. And then still another treaty was broken. Now, Chief Seattle was not a Plains Indian, but his expressive words ring true for most American Indians. Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every clearing and humming insect is holy in the memory and experience of my people. The sap which courses through the trees carries the memory of the red man. The shining water that moves in the streams and rivers is not just water, but the blood of our ancestors. We'll be coming back to a little bit more of Chief Seattle, but hear the words of Philip Sheridan, Union Army. These words were first uttered, I believe, down in Texas. And you're looking at a stack of buffalo hides. And Philip Sheridan says, "Buffalo hunters destroy the Indians' commissary. For the sake of lasting peace, let them kill, skin, and sell until they have exterminated the buffalo. Then your prairies will be covered with speckled cattle and a festive cowboy." And Mother Earth says, "Hear the crack of a gun, and my buffaloes start falling. Hear 1,000 guns, and very quickly my buffalo are gone." And I bring another animal into this that is not in the Plains Indians, but it is important to understand. This is the passenger pigeon. This is a drawing, and this is a museum specimen. What might have been God's feeling when the last passenger pigeon died of 8 billion or so that once lived? Or when any plant or animal becomes extinct because of mankind? And the last passenger pigeon that you're seeing died in 1914. Did the Great Spirit weep as the buffalo fell to the white man's guns? Then one summer day in 1876, on a rolling hillside along the Little Bighorn River in Montana, Chief Crazy Horse led his braves, and Custer, with 210 men of the 7th Cavalry, made his last stand. And this is how Frederick Remington thinks it might have looked. Now, Chief Crazy Horse, the great warrior of the Minneconjou band of the Oglala Sioux, was killed by a soldier with a bayonet while in captivity in 1877. This took place at Fort Robinson, Nebraska. His mother and father took his body and disappeared for about 24 hours out in this country. This is the Pine Ridge country. It is thought that he is buried on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. To his people, he was known as the Strange One. Now, here is Pine Ridge here, and here is Wounded Knee. The dancing that took place, the ghost dancing to bring back the buffalo and get rid of the white man, took place on Stronghold Table right up in here. And many of the people, under pressure by the Army, followed the creek called Wounded Knee down. This is a little creek right here, down there, and then the massacre of Wounded Knee took place. So after the white man had taken all of their land, the Sioux simply wanted to return to the old days, and they turned to the ghost dance. There's that buffalo up on the ridge in Badlands National Park. They turned to the ghost dance, a dance to bring back the buffalo and remove the white man. This dance was performed on the Stronghold Table in what is now in the South Unit of Badlands National Park. When pressed by the Army, many followed the Wounded Knee Creek down to Wounded Knee in the Pine Ridge Reservation. And at Wounded Knee, the U.S. Army carried out the massacre of over 250 men, women, and children. And this is the mass grave, one picture of it. And here is when they were burying all of those people. And here is what you would see if you went there today. This is the mass grave. And this is Red Cloud, chief of the Oglala Sioux. And this is where he was buried, at Red Cloud Indian School. In 1891, he said, "They made us many promises, more than I can remember. They kept but one. They promised to take our land, and they took it." Listen to Chief Seattle again. "There is no quiet place." Oh, I'm sorry, I should have had Red Cloud's picture on there as I was saying those words. So let's go on to Chief Seattle again. Took this picture up in Detroit. Isn't that a real mess? "There's no quiet place in the white man's cities. No place to hear the unfurling of leaves in spring or the rustle of insect wings. And what is there to life if a man cannot hear the lonely cry of the whippoorwill or the arguments of the frogs around a pond at night? The air is precious to the red man, for all things share the same breath. The beast, the tree, the man, they all share the same breath. The wind that gave our grandfather his first breath also receives his last sigh. Tell your children that the earth is rich with the lives of our kin. Teach your children what we have taught our children, that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. If men spit upon the earth, they spit upon themselves." This is at the top of those same Bighorn Mountains as we finish up that selection from Chief Seattle. Now, in a farewell address in 1909 at the Little Bighorn Council grounds, Chief Plentycoos of the Crow tribe in Montana summed up the situation of all American Indians. Now, I have you on the high plains here, and unplowed prairie. And here is a little bit more. And just as Chief Plentycoos, the ground on which we stand is sacred ground. It is a dust and